Pop in, say hi. If you haven't come into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And tonight is going to feel a little bit different because one of my regulars who never misses my live shows on Sunday night, and he's been with me for years, right? Owen, you're in charge. I'm sorry, dear. But Owen's in charge tonight. Owen, Andrew can't come in tonight. His modem broke down. He went down to resolve it. They couldn't even find his account. So he's not going to have another modem until Tuesday. So he messaged me or emailed me this morning to let me know. It was really nice of him because he knows I'll worry if he doesn't show up in the lives. But he messaged me and said that he couldn't show up tonight. He'll be in next week. But if you don't mind, if you'll just kind of keep an eye on the ruffians that come into our life. And I'm very grateful, I have been doing these lives for a very long time now, for at least 7 or 8 years. And it has been really interesting to involve myself in that, but also involve myself in other people's lives. It's really nice, that Andrew, he has my email, right? That he felt bad enough that he wasn't going to show up. Probably for the first time in the whole time that I think not too long ago, he wasn't able to come into my life, right, Owen? I think there was a time, maybe a few months ago, that he didn't come into my life. At that time, he also messaged me to let me know that he couldn't come live. But I am so grateful that I have this amazing crew. Hello, Paranormal Antics. Oh, cool. It's really interesting, when I was telling Owen that he was in charge of the ruffians tonight, that how grateful I am that, I don't get a lot of them, right? It's maybe once or twice a month, maybe, that a comment will have to be retracted or something from the lives. It's just kind of interesting how we each fell into those common etiquettes. Oh, Kathy's here too. To those common etiquettes that I don't know. Maybe I kind of be the evidence in my own presentation when I show up here live. I'm not sure how it happened, but we don't even get any swearing in my comments. That's absolutely incredible. I am not a big swear. Every once in a while, if you catch me by surprise, if it's a really scary, abrupt, something I wasn't expecting, you might get one of those SHIT words out of me, but not very often. I am not really big on swearing. It's not something I grew up on. It was a rule in the household that, there was no swearing allowed in the house. Once I turned 18, I was allowed to swear. And even when I turned 18, I couldn't bring myself to swear because it really wasn't my nature. I knew I could do it. I knew I had those moments of frustration and anger as a teenager and as a young adult, and sometimes too, to prove that I was cool, right? Like swearing was something cool. But I guess, those are some of those safety mechanisms that we put in places, right? Don't mess with me or I'm going to F you up, right? Right. And that scares people. That gives people a moment to think twice before making an unkind move. But, as I become more secure in who I am, right, it's not something that I miss. And in fact, that frustration and that scariness is something that doesn't come into my life very often, even when we get close to desperate situations or things that could really mess up. And we actually, right, we're doing a little bit of foreshadowing that we're kind of looking forward a little bit to say, oh my goodness, if we don't do this, this is going to happen, right? And lots of times, right, I just stay in the moment. If there's something I need, something I want, right? Uh, Something I want to do, I just go ahead and do it, understanding in the end everything is going to be okay. There were times too I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I would come up with a little bit of money and I'm going, "Oh my goodness, right? I need a new laptop. I need a new laptop." And then just out of the blue just make that decision to use that money that you were supposed to be saving for something else, and you buy that laptop like I did, right? I wish I had designed it with a better camera. That was the only mistake, that I didn't really pay attention. I don't know why I didn't pay attention to that, but maybe because I didn't realize that I was going to be using my laptop for doing my live shows or for filming or whatever. But the camera in the laptop was the only thing I think I made in a mistake. I'm editing videos right now, and I probably have 40 GBs of raw footage sitting on my laptop right now. And it's not even phasing my laptop in any way because I have so much RAM. I have so much storage going on. With my desktop, I love working with the desktop, but not having that proper RAM, that proper graphics card, it makes a big difference. And I designed my laptop myself specifically for editing my content that I create for YouTube, because that was always a big frustration for me, because I'm not technically inclined to start with. And then, you find your laptop or your computer, right? Your storage is not holding out for you. Everything is stalling out. Nothing wants to load. Everything is absolutely slow. And we're just going to stop right here and send some good cheer out there. Let everybody, right, know that we're wishing some good cheer to these fire trucks, that they get to their destination, knock on the door, and everything is going to be okay, that they're just going to get to turn around and go right back to the station. In front of my building this afternoon, I spent most of the time with my footage today, because Wednesday is my next upload of the next park that I'm going to, Erin Provincial Park, Ontario. I'll be posting that on Wednesday. I'm working on it right now. And if you haven't seen Silver Falls yet, it's 1 hour and 45 minutes long. But just go to my main page. It's sitting there on my main page, and you can just go in and watch that. Leave me your feedback. Let me know what you think, because this is how I get better, right? In what I bring to the table. Because whatever I want to bring to the table, I want people to get something out of it, right? Even in this Sunday show, even though it's a light version, or supposed to be a light version of what I do Monday to Friday, it is um it is serving. This is, it's lots of people have had rough weeks, and they're going into the new week, and they just want to make sure that it's off to a good start. Even for myself, if you haven't noticed, oh my goodness, I'm so happy I got my hair colored. I couldn't handle it, you guys. I thought 6 months ago that it was my time to stop coloring my hair. I should act my age. And I stopped coloring my hair. And I thought my hair was going to grow in white, but it grew in so dark. And I had, oh my goodness, I had like 6 inches, maybe 5 inches of really dark hair growing in. And I just thought, no, I can't. That's just too dreary for me. It takes away from that cheeriness of me looking in the mirror, and I just feel old and greasy and dull, right? And I want to be upbeat. I want to be light and part of, right? Even the pink bangs, you guys. I even colored my bangs pink today, right? I'm just so happy about that. So what that does for me, it gives me a good foothold into going into next week, right? When we feel, right, the heaviness, we feel the trip ups, we feel the the heat on us, we feel things falling apart a little bit. It's important to pamper ourselves. It really, really is. Lots of us, we fall back, even myself, we fall into those things that are not good for us, even for myself. Like I said, oh my goodness, what did I eat today? That was ice cream. I'm not supposed to be eating the dairy, but it was so cheap. And I says, oh, one more time. We're going to have ice cream just one more time. And then we're just going to give it up forever. Just like I said with the hair colors, right? I ate that whole container, you guys, in an afternoon. I ate a whole liter of ice cream all by myself. I haven't had it for a long time. That's not an excuse. But at the same time, I have to say, because in going into that, oh, I'm just going to have this ice cream, I'm never going to have it again, I'm going to, okay, let's get this out of the house. And I ate that whole container, right? And how did that make me feel? This is what I'm thinking to myself. I think about all these things. How did that make me feel eating that whole container of ice cream? In the moment, it made me feel pretty darn amazing. It made me happy. It made me feel like I was giving myself a treat, especially as I was doing something, the video editing and stuff, right? I haven't gone to the editing part. I'm just picking out the footage, and I'm going through it, and I'm figuring out what I'm going to use and what can just stay, because that hour and a half, you guys, I so appreciate that you guys come in and watch my provincial park tour videos, but they are long. I don't think this one is going to be as long. The next one for sure will be pretty close to 2 hours, I would think. I'm going to do it in one shot no matter what, because I'm going to send some good cheer. Oh my goodness, the backup. Get to your destination. Be a false alarm. Go to a different destination, and that one be a false alarm. And then both trucks can get back to the station. I've had a busy street today with the fire trucks and the police and ambulances. Across the street, I had three police cars, a fire truck, and an ambulance, right? It took up almost the entire block. I don't know what was going on. I think somebody passed away across the street, and then one of the family members was having issues, right? Like really serious breakdown issues over it. That's when you see that kind of reaction, like I could tell that it was grief. And because I know that's a home where people are recovering, where people are coming out of the hospitals, and they just need a place to stay while they're doing follow-ups and stuff, and their post-op checkups and stuff before they head home. Most of the people that stay across the street there are from the communities that live up north, but I felt so bad for them, right? But I've been warned many times, never really to get myself involved with the people at that building, but I have, and they've been very nice to me, very courteous to me. And there have been times I've seen wheelchairs be dropped off by cabs and just dropped off at the sidewalk, and people have just sat there in their chairs with all their gear on the ground around them, and they're actually yelling for help, for somebody to come and help. So I've gone down there a couple of times and grabbed them and grabbed their gear and taken them into the front lobby. They have a nurse's station right in the front lobby, and I just go in. I've never gone into the building other than right to get the chairs into the building, but they've always been really nice to me. But today it felt like grief to me. It really felt, it didn't look like somebody that was strung out on drugs or alcohol or anything. It really, to me, it looked like grief. So yeah, I sent him a little bit of good cheer, but with all those police cars and everything, was kind of right. It was just kind of how the day felt. It's just kind of how the whole day felt in its heaviness, right? Okay. Hello, Earl. Thank you for popping in today. We're going to have the next installment, Erin Provincial Park. That will be posted on Wednesday. I'm just going to stay comfortable in the process, which I've been doing. If I have to get up and make cookies or peanut butter toast or whatever I need to do to get the job done, I'll get that job done. And I'll stay cheery in that process because it makes me happy to see the progress in it, right? And even if I'm not a big fan of editing, right, it makes me happy at the very least that, I understand at the very least I'm willing to be allowed to be pulled in to the technical part of what I do. As soon as I can pass it on to somebody else, the better I'll feel. But in the meantime, it's part of the job, right? And I do everything that's difficult. I do it in baby steps. I don't traumatize myself. I don't beat myself to the ground. I don't make myself feel guilty like, how I should have felt today when I ate that whole brick of ice cream. I just laugh at myself. I did enjoy it though. I haven't had ice cream. Oh my goodness, for a long, long time, right? But I don't want to omit the things that I love out of my life, right? I just know that ice cream is probably not the best thing for me. Understanding that as I grow older, I become a little bit more lactose intolerant. But nothing will get the system moving like the dairy will. That's for sure. Houston, Texas. Oh my goodness, too hot for me. How hot does it get there, Earl, in the summertime? What's the hottest it gets there? Here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, we get to about 100. 100 is probably, we'll get a few days where it gets up to 100 degrees. Um, Other than that, we usually stay. Well, we work in Celsius, not Fahrenheit. But I'm just trying to compare, just in case you're from Texas and you're in the Fahrenheit system. But we usually stay in a range of between 30 and maybe 37. Ooh, another one, you guys. 37 Celsius, which is pretty close to being that high 90s, 100-degree range, right? Wintertime, well, you guys wouldn't even get snow in Texas, would you? I guess there could be some parts of Texas that do get snow. Here in Manitoba, our snow can range. In the past few years, with the global warming, we have been privileged to have very, very light winters for myself. Right? I like hard, cold winters. I've got gear. I bundle up in the snowshoes, and not the snowshoes. I sold my snowshoes, but I bundle up in my snow boots and my ski pants and my big parka and my face masks and my, not face mask, but my big face mask where all you see is my eyeballs, right? and my big mitts. Actually, I pulled out my winter gear this week, and I really have some lovely, really, really good quality winter gloves for this year. I saved a lot of them. I try and save 6 pairs of good winter gloves. So when I knew that I was going to be leaving my job, I started collecting good gloves, and yeah, I've got enough good pairs. I only 6 pairs because I give them away to the homeless, right? And I also lose them. I don't usually lose both pairs, but I usually lose one of the gloves of the pair, which kind of makes them useless after that. So I yeah, I'm become a little bit of a winter glove collector. I like my outerwear, right? I'm not afraid to admit that I love my outerwear, winter coats, winter boots, right? Past few years have become very particular about the brands of footwear that I wear because I want to be active physically well into my 80s and 90s, if at all possible. I'm very grateful for the good health that I have now. I recognize that, that my health, in comparable to other people who are my age, is pretty amazing. Other than the odd Charlie horse, right? I don't even get headaches. I've never had a bleeding nose. I can't say I've never broken a bone. I've broken this baby finger many times over the year. That's as straight as my baby finger. My baby finger goes now. It doesn't go any straighter than that. It's kind of cute. It doesn't bother me in any way. If I had done it earlier in my life, in my adult life, I probably, or as a teenager, I would have had it set properly, understanding that, when you break your bones and stuff, that's kind of an invitation for the calcium deposits to set in into the healing. And then we end up with arthritis. I only know that because, I have two sisters with the arthritis, and I had my mother who had 12 different kinds of rheumatoid arthritis. By the time my mother was 30 years old, her hands were clenched like this. She couldn't open up her hands. My mother lived to be 72 years old, and by 30 years old, my mother could barely walk. She worked until she was 40, and my mother would have worked right until she was 67, but the hospital knew my mother was worked in housekeeping in hospitals, and she would never have given up that job. But the administration, they noticed that my mother. Let me have a sip of my juice. Administration, the hospital administration, they knew my mother was having problems with the arthritis, and they made her go see some doctors who confirmed, right, that she should be retired. And they forced my mother into retirement. I think my mother was 41 years old when my mother retired, but my mother retired with a really good pension. She got into hospitals, and hospitals offer up good pensions. And hospitals, my nephew recently got into the exact same position as what my mother did, right? In housekeeping in hospitals. And he's set for life. He's just doing it part time right now. But as the full time positions open up and he proves himself, he'll get that full time for sure. And he'll be set for his own life. And on top of that, he'll be in service, won't he? Right? And in his position, he'll be in service, and right, life will take care of him that way. I find that, the most amazing part of working for hospitals, or working for the fire department, or the police department, or the ambulance, or you're a surgeon, or right, even a school cross, what do you call that, guard, right? That is service. And you should get paid. If it's your job, you should get paid. Me and my nephew had this discussion not a month ago, and he was very adamant. I said, you're so smart. You should be online. You should be sharing your lessons. You should be making this your business. You should be, right, being a consultant for other people, right? He's doing something completely different than what I'm doing, right? Right, but you should make this your living. And he was just in shock by that. Oh no, I can't do that for money. This goes against my grain. And I'm just like, it's not like you were a nun or a priest in a past life, and you just, right, you gave an oath of poverty, right? You got to look at it as you're part of a community, right? A community who needs your services, a community that can't run healthily or properly without your services. It's just like, the blacksmith trading the baker for a couple of loaves of bread, and he puts a couple of horseshoes on her horse and stuff, right? It's in that mutual exchange, right? Everybody should get paid for what they have to offer. These are gifts that were meant to help you in your life, gifts specifically to even put a roof over your head, right? And yeah, he was still pretty adamant that, he was wanting to be like a poor monk and live in his underwear and just meditate and do whatever he does, right? But I can't make those decisions for him. I could throw some information at him. If he catches it, great. If he doesn't catch it, he's gonna move the way that he wants to move, right? But I don't know how I got into that conversation, but I did. Hello, William. Our nights in Houston are around 68 degrees, which is around room temperature. Right now, days are around 88. Yeah, see, that's a little bit too uncomfortable for me. It was my plan this March to rent another luxury vehicle, and I was because March, I know, in Arkansas and Arizona, that's going into spring for them, and it's much cooler down there, but you still need that air conditioning, and I have a really hard time with the heat. I'm very, right, I like the cold. Even now, I'm having a problem putting my air conditioner away. We're in October now, and I'm thinking, oh, we're gonna have a couple of nice days. And today was all dark and rainy and dreary, and I'm just sitting here watching the leaves get blown around in front of my window. And I live like on the fourth floor, and it's like snowing leaves. And I'm just like, oh, right? And that adds on to the feelings, you guys. You know, I talked about it a couple of times with, I don't know with who, maybe on my Monday to Friday, What's My Good Cheer podcast. I might have talked about it there, probably talked about it with my sister, because when they feel down, and I'm always looking to kind of give them some insights that I have. But November is a really, really, oh, it was my nephew. That's who I was talking to. I met him on the elevator, and I was telling him November is kind of hard, right? Was it my nephew? I can't remember who. Might have even been a tenant, right? But, November has always been a difficult time, right? Where we feel bad. Oh, I remember now. It was one of my neighbors that I met on the elevator. It was, and he was saying that he had been really, really down, so down that he had to go see a doctor about it, and he was having some really issues. And I says, it's a little early right now because I love fall. Like right now, even though it's dark and dreary and rainy, I am kind of doing that little bit of looking forward, right ahead. November's coming, and right, so I got to be careful about that. But because of the smell, because it still smells like fall, like the the rotting leaves are just amazing. The leaves blowing around, in the sky, the birds, and I'm still hearing the geese as they're doing their seasonal run south. So I still feel like I'm in that fall. But when we start feeling the trip ups, right? We've got the dark weather and the rain, and then your sister yelled at you, and then you look in your change purse and there's no money in your change purse, and then you get a bill in the mail, and then you break your favorite ornament, and then you drop your dishes on the floor, and then you didn't budget for this thing, and then as it all adds up, that's the thing. That's the kick you when you're down. And that's what used to get me the most, right? Is when you're down and when things aren't going well, then you get another kick, right? It's kind of like, how much can you bear? How much can you hold? And there's that expectation somewheres. Where that expectation is, I can't always say, but there is that expectation that you're going to break, that you're going to give up, you are going to burst into tears, right? And with a few lessons and a few tools around my belt, you guys hear me say it all the time. Everything is going to be okay. I'm just a notification that came up on over my comments there. I just had to check. It just looked like somebody commenting on one of my videos, but it was just somebody commenting to say, we uploaded, come and watch us, right? I don't usually promote my stuff that way. I want to be discovered. I want people just to kind of happen on to me. You know, it was the other day somebody happened into somebody who's recently been watching my podcast, and they popped in and, I don't know why I've never stumbled onto your content before. And I went, oh my goodness, that's so amazing. Those people like you guys, how you found me, right? Those are the very, very best. I don't promote my stuff in any way. And as of late, I've been sticking to YouTube. For me, that's enough, because for what I'm doing, I have to put a lot of work into that. And I don't want to be spreading myself so thin that I only become mediocre in what I'm doing, right? There's a course that I've been wanting to take. I want to be taking an addiction course, and it's a free course that I don't even have to pay for. But right in this moment, I'm editing video, I'm doing a podcast 5 days a week. I have my Sunday show, and I'm thinking, no, Cindy, right? Right? You have to pace yourself a little bit. And I'm comfortable. What's on my plate right now is perfectly manageable. But nothing is sacrificable. You know what I mean? I'm not giving up on any part of what I'm doing right now to add something to my plate, right? I have to be comfortable enough that I'm able to bring one more to the plate. So what I'm thinking is, soon as these 4 provincial parks, I've got them posted, I've got my reviews on Google Maps, I've got a few short video clips of the trails that I walked, uploaded to Google Maps too, so that people can actually go in and find the information that they need. It's like, even for myself, I use Google Map photos all the time when I'm looking at my choices, my parts that I want to book. I use Google Maps in that. I use the reviews, I use the photos, I use the distances for my timings to see, the distances between my parks, and if I want to take an extra park, which this park that I'm getting ready to post for Wednesday, it was only for one day, and yet I was able to have just the most amazing time, most amazing experience in that one day. And I walked trails and I did a lot of walking in that park. And I was only there for 24 hours, less than 24 hours. Yeah, I really liked all the parks I visited this year. I'm really excited to see what next year is going to look like. I don't want it to be another budget trip. And this trip was not a budget trip, right? I had to work hard and with kindnesses of others and those, right? Because I go through life, and my motto is that I move through the kindnesses of others and by my own steam, right? That I give energy. I don't take energy, but I can receive energy, right? I can receive energy. You guys come in here, right, and hang out with me every Sunday. That's giving me that motivation to show up next Sunday, right? And also in my lessons, I get to practice my craft, right? Practicing my craft without, what is that? Without having intentions in that. Understanding that, this is just built in as part of my life now, so that, I can just be the evidence for others, right? That others who need to heal, because I can only reveal in that, right? And you guys could run with your own ideas. Oh my goodness, here's something really interesting that I came across today. Another sip of my juice. Happy Thanksgiving to any Canadians. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. For most of us, we celebrate on Sundays. We usually have a turkey day. My sister is going to be sending my nephew home with a turkey dinner for me tonight. She's going to her daughter's house for Thanksgiving dinner, and she messaged me and asked me if I wanted a dinner, which was very, very thoughtful, very considerate that she did that for me. So I expect that he's going to knock on the door at any time, because he'll want to get home and get back to his lessons too. He's in it just as deep, if not deeper than I am, but I don't delve into it, right? We have conversations and share insights, but they are private affairs, and because they are different affairs, right? We respect each other's privacies in that 100%. But I'm very happy that he got a job at the hospital. My family is doing, oh, I'm going to say it was the best of times. It was the worst of times, because I see so many good things going on in my family. I'm feeling so much better emotionally and mentally. The idea now is to make sure that physically I can keep up with how I feel, right? So that I can enjoy my life for another 20 or 30 years. This week I've been looking at RVs, you guys. Oh my goodness. We're looking like $120,000 for an RV. And I think that's an American, so in Canadian money, that's probably going to be like 160, 150, $160,000 for an RV. And that would be just to get on the road. That's not the gas, that's not the insurance. But I still have time in that, because I know once my retirement hits, that, my pension would be enough to cover my basics if I could figure out how to come up with $170,000 for the RV. But I'm just taking a look, right? We're window shopping. We know that, we move towards what we what we want, what we desire, right? We set the plan in motion and we move towards that. And I know that I don't have $170,000. I have no inkling in how $170,000 is going to come into my hands. But I'm still moving towards it, trusting that if that's the life that I want, what do I want? I just can't get that money. I wouldn't even know how much an RV. Maybe I would have gotten 10,000 in my hand and go RV time, and then go out to find an RV and end up with something broken, something that can't even be safety, something that's going to be shutting down on me once I'm on the road for a month, right? So I want to check out specs. I want to check out what's important to me, what kind of toilets in an RV. I'm not even sure if I need toilets and showers in my RV. That would give me extra space because I do provincial parks and there's outhouses and stuff, and it's just another opportunity to go for a walk. Right? And you could always get like a little garbage can and just put a bag in it or something. I don't know. I'm just looking at different options. For sure, there's going to have to be air conditioning. And I would like one of those RVs where the sides come out to make extra space. I am not claustrophobic. I don't mind tight spaces, but I do like spaces. And I would like to have a table with a nice big window that I can open up with a bug screen, right? I want blackout shades. I want swivel driver seats. I need a workstation because I'm a YouTube creator and I need something that I could just designate as my workstation. So when I'm editing videos, I'm going to need Skylink, right? That's uh, Elon Musk's satellite internet, right? If I'm going to be on the road, I'm going to need internet wherever I go. And that's like 3 times as much as your regular internet that you get on out of your modem at your household, right? Yeah, I feel bad for Andrew because he's been running around with it. Everybody has, you guys, but we're so wrapped up in our own problems and our own issues and what's going on in our own vicinity, in our own communities, in our own families, that it seems too much that we just kind of block out everything and everyone else. And we don't recognize that everybody is having such a hard time right now. But that's the readjustment, right? There's some readjustments going on and things are changing, and all we can do is keep moving. All we can do is adapt and conquer and treat ourselves well. And if you need that quart of ice cream, you give yourself that quart of ice cream. Yeah, I wasn't happy about editing today, but I made note of it. I made note of it too, right? I'm supposed to be on a budget, right? There was no need to be spending that extra money, even if it was a few dollars. But at the same time, I'm lactose intolerant to some degree, right? That I am lactose intolerant and I shouldn't be eating the ice cream to start with, right? It's just what we do, right? We are creating the best human being we possibly can, but we're not even close to being, right? And we beat ourselves up because we're all supposed to be like the Pope or we're supposed to be like Mother Teresa's, that, right? We don't give ourselves any rope unless it's to hang ourselves or to whip ourselves, right? And that's very unkind, right? I would never do that to myself. I've been doing that to myself my entire life, and I'm grateful I made it here. I'm grateful I made it here anyway. But it's important for me to recognize that it wasn't just me that made it here, right? It was teamwork. It was in that partnership with myself, right? It wasn't that partnership with myself. Oh, you guys, I think next week, the 22nd, 10 days from today, you guys, I was just saw Earl's comment saying that he was 60 years old. I am going to be 64 years old this year. 64 years old. Wow, that's pretty amazing because I don't feel 64 in any way. And the only reason I do feel that way because I'm taking care of myself now physically. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not overdoing it. I'm not overexerting it. I'm taking extra breaks and extra rests where I can. Even if I don't need it, I'm making sure that I'm sitting down and I'm just enjoying the landscape. I don't have to go 100 miles an hour, right? No, I don't. This isn't this isn't my job. This is my life, and I think my life worked out the way it did because right, it recognized that that's what I was doing. I was do even when I was cheerleading myself and thinking I was 20 years old and I can get it all done. I could do my Monday to Friday live shows. I could do my Sunday show. I can go off and right, I we got to remember that we are only human and not beat ourselves into ground, but more importantly that when we do, because right, sometimes we can't help it. I was a prime example. Well, I didn't have much of a choice when I was out in the provincial parks because there's nobody there. You're there by yourself, right? There's nobody. If I get a flat tire, I'm going to have to figure out how to change the tire. And there were those kind of challenges going on every single day. But those kind of challenges happen to me all the time when I go on these trips, right? I was thinking about it today. It was one aspect of my gambling addiction that I thrived in. What? Thriving in gambling addiction? Yeah, that was a toughie for me. But when I was thinking about it today because I did something today, I spent money today I shouldn't have spent, right? And I thought about it and I thought, was that kind of like self-sabotage? So you can do some problem solving. Are you bored, Cindy? Right? That now you're going to have to put problems on your plate that you're going to have to solve and resolve, right? Otherwise, it's going to turn into a big problem for you. Did you do that on purpose? And I said, yeah, I think I did. But I smiled at that because I recognized that, right? And it was something that I did when I was gambling. I would just put myself in just to the worst situations when I was gambling that it offered up challenges in the problems, right? Whether it was putting gas in the car or groceries in the cupboard or explaining to my husband why I didn't have any money or, say I can't do things and not contribute to the household as well as my husband did because we were partners, right? And my husband made good money, but I make good money too. And for the most part, my husband took care of everything when it concerned the bills and taking care of the household and everything. And again, it was in that not growing together that we grew apart, and that's not good. That's not good partnership, right? Good partnership is taking an interest in what each other is doing, not necessarily doing the exact same thing, right? But supporting the other one in what they love and what they need, and kind of again for thinking a little bit into the future, right? Oh my goodness, he's going to need gas in the car tomorrow. Or, oh, maybe after work he's going to want to go out for his friends. I should come home with a few dollars so that, he has a few dollars in his pocket so he can go out and have a couple of drinks with his friends or go out for lunch with his friends. And, you know, that's part of that partnership, is just to kind of think, what does your partner need, right? And serving those gaps, right? Or at the very least helping them fill their own gaps that way, right? But he right, how can he fill those gaps when he's filling the gaps of the household needs? He couldn't even take care of himself and have a good time in that. Yeah, I had a good one in my husband. He treated me really, really well. That one screwing up, that was 100% me, because I was not the person in the end that he married, right? He married somebody who was just super excited to be living this new, exciting, totally different life that she'd ever lived in her entire life. That Cinderella creation that I had become. And he found that. And there was that expectation that that was always going to be the way that it was. And in my own limiting beliefs and in that fear, right? That fear of what we don't know, or what we can contribute. It makes us a little bit nervous. And right, and having that gambling addiction, it just made me negative. It just made me, what do you call those, a Debbie Downer, right? Just depressed and worried and stressed and a liar, right? That was the worst part of that, because I was never a liar. I was always the first one to fess up if I had done anything wrong. Like if you pushed me, like I could do that and not say nothing, but just my own demeanor would be enough to say, "Oh, what did Cindy do? Look at her. She looks guilty. What's that?" And then you just push me a little bit and I would fess up right off the hop. But in that gambling, right? That was so shameful that, I would do that to myself, do that to my partnership with my husband, and in the truth, it was something probably I didn't have any control over, because I was just trying to survive the changes that I was going through. And that's the way I survived my entire life, was jumping in and letting my coping mechanisms take me away rather than experiencing them. So that was one thing today, when I have these conversations or I do that little bit of self sabotage, right? It's not a matter of chastising myself, it's just a matter of sitting in it and recognizing it for what it is, right? And being optimistic in that experimentation, that possibly it might resolve itself, right? You don't know unless you try. At least I'm trying, right? I'm putting that effort in, and I'm not perfect. Nobody is perfect. We are all struggling, whether it's emotionally, mentally, physically. I was talking about this too with this gentleman in the elevator, who said that, he's been having such a hard time of it. His depression was so bad. But, we do that to ourselves that way, right? We beat ourselves up and we make ourselves feel bad. And when that shame hits in, we zip up about it. I barely know the gentleman, right? I don't even know his name. I see him all the time. I say hello, small chit chat. But when somebody needs to talk, somebody needs to talk, and if somebody needs to talk, I'm willing to listen in that. But in listening to that, I just looked at him and I said, you know what? I think it's pretty amazing that you talk about it, because it is in the talking and the crying. It's just not time that heals all wounds, right? If you don't talk about it, if you don't let that stuff up and out, right? It's just going to eat you from the inside, right? And you're not going to feel good about that. And, we shouldn't be made, right? Right? Little boys are brought up to be the tough guys. And for the most part, moms are bringing up the kids by themselves. So, at an early age, these children, they get to grow up learning and understanding that they're the man of the house at 6, 7 years old, and they have to be tough, and they can't cry, and then they're off working and getting jobs at 15 or 16 to help support the household. And then that causes problems because we build attachments on that, right? We build attachments in that, and lots of times we build resentment in that, and sometimes we give up our own lives to make sure that other people's lives are feeling okay, right? And so I'm really, really grateful that I pay attention, right? I can't always fix the mistakes that I get myself in. Sometimes you don't have any choices but just to ride the waves and wait for everything to be okay, because everything will always be okay. But if you really mess it up, it's going to take some time, it's going to take some effort, or it's going to be very painful. But it'll be okay, right? So I would much rather put that work in, find the solution for myself, or at the very least, recognize what I did, so that when that opportunity to make that choice again, like that ice cream that I ate today that comes across my path, just say, oh, Cindy, go get some celery sticks instead. That wouldn't work for me. Celery sticks for sure would not work for me, because it just takes me back to a time when, you know, the treats and the desserts and the second helpings, and I was a little fat kid, right? I was morbidly obese. I was made to feel that way anyway. And I've been on diets my entire life, and for me, you say, Cindy, you can't have that ice cream, right? I'm having that ice cream. I will earn that money, right? And I will hide that ice cream under my bed if I have to. But I'm going to make sure that I have those treats. And right, maybe that's a little bit of partnership with myself, because that was how I coped. That's what made me feel better, because being on a diet and being told no when everybody else was getting what they wanted or needed, and I was being told no, that felt like punishment to me, right? And I wasn't going to do that to myself. I wasn't going to allow that to happen. And I'm even stronger in that opinion today, right? And so I look for happy solutions, right? Diet ice cream, low calorie creamer. You find solutions that make you feel proud of yourself, right? And we need that, because there's so often that we don't feel good. And I put extra in the fall, because I know how I feel in November. November is not a good month for me. It never has been in my entire life. It's always very depressive. Once November's done, I am pretty much good to go for the rest of the year. But I do have a hard time in November. October, as the right, it only reminds me November's coming, Cindy. So probably I'm my own instigator, right? In that. And I probably make November a whole lot worse than what it is. But with those tools around my belt now, I understand that, maybe I could go to a concert. Maybe I could go to a theater. Maybe I could spend more time with my sisters. Maybe I could buy myself a gift. Maybe I can keep myself so busy in September that, September's over before I even knew it started, right? There's lots of things that we can do to cheer ourselves up, but talking about it is important, right? And you could say, oh my goodness, if I talked about that and told everybody how bad I felt, and whether your month is January or February, whatever your month is, and you say, oh my goodness, it's the worst, or that time of month, oh, this third week every month is just the worst. People can use that too as tools, right? To kick you when you're down, because you're down, you're down. And right? And if you talk about it and you let people know about it, you pay attention to that too, right? Because if they use that knowledge, right, against you, then you know who your friends are, right? Because they're using it as a weapon against you, something they know about you, and they know that about you, right? It's like a boundary, and they're crossing that boundary, right? And unless you talk about it, right, they're just, oh, I didn't know, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I know that now, right? That's why you talk about it. You talk about the problems. You talk about the things that bother you, right? And and that's what helps you get through things. And you can share the things that make you happy too. I do that often, right? I tell lots of my amazing adventures and stuff like that, and I make things light because that can reinforce somebody's idea that it's possible, right? No matter how crappy of a life that you have or have had, that it can get better, and it most definitely can, right? I've lived that way my entire life, and I've had some of the most amazing experiences that some people could only dream of, and people who have wonderful, amazing lives, but they don't have that. That was mine, right? I created that. I manifested that. And, it's kind of that idea. Things could go bad all around you, but it's how much attention are you going to pay to that? Try to resolve whatever the problem is. If you can, get up, brush your knees off, carry on, right? Whistle while you work, talk about the problems, pay attention, right? To the ones that are kicking you while you have those problems, and pay attention to whether or not they understand that you do have problems, because lots of times people don't know. Because why? We don't say anything, because we keep it inside, because we're being tough, because we're the men of the house, right? That we want to say we're perfect, we don't make mistakes, right? And we all do. We're all handicapped. I say it all the time, because it's going to be in our humbleness that. Oh, and that's just exactly that came to my mind here. Um, I was watching a post today, and again, I can't attribute it to who was saying. I think it was an advertisement, but what they were saying in that advertisement, they were talking about religious diversity, because we're this close in this digital age that we can see all the different religious ideas, and how these different religious ideas, they all bump heads with each other, and we make enemies out of people that we don't even know, and cultures we don't even know, because they're different from our ideas, they're different from the way we think, they're different from our networks. And if you're a network, that's even harder, because now you're fighting in a pack, right? You have an idea, you have a mass idea, and you're all thinking in this one idea, and another group who has a different idea to that, right? You're not going to interact with them. And he says the answer for us is, tolerance is so important, but tolerance builds walls too, because we just don't associate with what we tolerate. Oh, that's just so and so, just right? And we go off and do whatever, and we don't allow ourselves to get close to that. And he said the only thing that we can do here is to start with humility, right? To recognize that none of us is perfect. None of us has the answers, right? We we have to be very humbled to understand that, we are just one link. We are just one link, and that next link right beside us that we are linked to might have a different religious idea, different political idea, different cultural custom or tradition, family tradition. And, we can start with the tolerance. It's a good place to start, but it has to be more than tolerance. It has to be acceptance of each other, right? It takes all kinds to make the world. And if we don't have that diversity, we're going to become extinct, right? It's just not enough diversity in us to grow in any way. And what doesn't grow, what doesn't evolve, right? It becomes obsolete, right? And something or someone else will take that spot. And I do appreciate that I am part of the species of Homo sapiens, right? That, even though we are the very last of the human beings, that somehow we can amalgamate and assimilate, right, into ideas that are more acceptable to us because we allowed ourselves to rub shoulders with somebody different, that we were able to sit and listen and talk, right? To give different perspectives so people could really feel us out, right? I move very much in an individual basis, right? I have moved in groups. I like the groups too, but the groups are very busy and they're very chaotic in the juggling of all those emotions and all those different personalities and all those different problems. And if you're hyper vigilant than I am, you're always watching to see who's going to snap off next, or who's going to go in a depression, or who's going to break up with a boyfriend, and who's going to yell at you, or who's going to steal your rent money, or right. And that's too much. That's too much. You might figure, oh, I'm a master judge, I can do it all. But in our emotions and in our mental states, we can drive ourselves a little bit batty in the big groups. I like the small groups. I've been in small groups for the most part of my life. In my young adulthood, I had an opportunity to go in those big groups. They were lots of fun too. I learned lots in them, but I got hurt lots in them too. But if I hadn't gotten hurt lots in those times that was in those groups, I wouldn't have had those experiences that would have given me those lessons that carry me to this point to say, oh my goodness, I need to work more on an individual basis, right? The people in my life, they're not lots of them, right? They're not lots of them. But, right, I may reach lots, not now, but at some point, right? At some point. But in this moment, right, in our hypervigilance, I think it is probably a good idea that we stay in the circles that is safe for us emotionally, financially. I'm just laughing because I knew I was going to come right back. We got a little bit of crazy weather going on. We're expecting rain and thunderstorms and stuff. So, and they said it was going to be clear all day, but we had rain all day. So I'm expecting it to be pretty good tonight. And winter is starting to come in. By Halloween, we usually get our first snow on Halloween. It is pretty much the norm here. It hasn't been in the past few years, only because of the global warming going on. I suspect, maybe 100,000 years from now, where I live now in the wintertime might be like Tahiti, right? You don't know. Weather is something you can't control. I look at the Weather Channel every day to see how the weather's going to be. They don't get it right very often. It's almost hour to hour, 100%. Okay, you guys, let's come into the comments. And for those of you who don't know, Andrew's not here tonight because he lost his internet and they couldn't even find his account. And I said, "Oh, well, that's good, Andrew. You're not going to get a bill this month. If they don't have any of your they can't find your account. They can't find nothing on it. Then yeah, you're not going to get a bill. You're not going to get a bill at the end of the month. So he'll be back and up and running on Tuesday. He'll be with us again on Sunday. It was really nice of him to shoot me that email this morning because he knows that he's somebody that I do concern myself with because it's very rare that he doesn't show up here on Sunday nights. He's a big part of this Sunday night live show, and I'm so grateful. Thank you, Owen, and everybody for contributing tonight and filling in those spaces. It's much appreciated. Very appreciated. Thank you guys, everybody, for coming in. And Earl, hi Earl. I put a new radiator in my 2002 Ford F-150. My brother-in-law has that truck. He's had it redone, but I think his was a 1991. A couple of years ago, he had the whole truck redone. The exterior and mechanically. He did as much of the work as he could. My brother in law, he was very handy. He could delve into books or get somebody to pull up a website for him and he would study and he was super smart that way. I believe the government actually tried to recruit him to come and work for him because he was so smart, but he thought he was so smart that he said no, right? Yeah. He was a know-it-all, and but he really did know lots, but he wanted to make sure that everybody knew how much he knew, right? That's the one thing that people don't understand about narcissists. They beat the narcissists down all the time, but narcissists are harder on themselves than anybody else are, and they strive, right, to know what they're talking about because they don't want to be caught in their lives. And narcissists, they do lie, right? They lie like it's a truth, and you can throw the truth and you can get the evidence and say, look at this, you were 100% wrong. I've done it a few times with my brother-in-law, right, with my family members, right? You go, look at this is the proof, and they'll still brush it off like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. That's the premier. He's such an idiot. He has no idea. Right? Like he was the be all to end all, right? But he had lots of good qualities. And sometimes we come across these characters and we just pick them apart. We treat them so badly. And I understand. I have been bitten by narcissists so many times, make your head spin, right? It was just part of the routine that I had to live, right? It was my experience. But nobody wants to accuse. Nobody wants to be a truth teller and bring something to the surface that isn't 100% verified in any way. So lots of times, we have to um, take in a little bit from these people because they're a part of our lives. They're our parents, they're our brother-in-laws, they're our brothers or sisters, right? And to keep the peace, we sometimes do that tolerance. And sometimes quite often we'll go, oh, don't worry about it. That's just the way they are. That's just Joe. He's always been that way. Yeah, but I'm Cindy and I'm not that way. And so what do we do about that? right? Well, that's when you say, well, okay, we'll see him at Thanksgiving. And then you suck it up and you just start seeing these people during the the holidays, right? On Turkey Day, at Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving, these days that you know that we are responsible to be a part of the family and part of that networking. And then that's where we show up and we don't, right? We don't connect and we don't share the same way, but we don't disrespect in any way because we understand that, everybody has handicaps. Everybody, right? Somebody might look like they have the most beautiful life and they'll just put all their problems on the narcissist or the empath and they'll just, right? And just make them feel crappy or frustrated, right? And in reality, they're just as messed up or more messed up as anybody, but because they have somebody to direct that at who's going to react in a certain way, right? And when they react in a certain way, they're going to look a certain way. And if they look a certain way, then the rest of them are going to go, oh, I'm just going to hang out with these people because so and so said that. And look how they're, right? And that's the digging when somebody's down and you kick somebody when you're down and you kick somebody until you get the reaction that you want. That was a tactic that was used on me all the time, right? And that's the one that would get me into trouble. And that's why my dad would say all the time, turn the other cheek. Because if you don't give them any reaction in any way, right, they got nothing to feed off of. And that's the truth in that. Yeah, right. And but these experiences, right? I learned them because I was in them, right? Can you imagine somebody who's never had an experience with these kind of people before and they get trapped in that game, right? And I was in that game for a very long time, and I think probably for a lot longer than I actually think I was, and that's the truth. Okay, enough of that already. Um, but yeah, interesting. Yeah, my brother-in-law had that same truck, but his was a 1991 or a 1992, and he redid the engine and everything. He gave it a new paint job and sanded off all the rusted spots and redid all the chrome and put new lights in it. Oh, it was just it was a nice looking truck. It looked like a fire truck because it was red and it was super huge, right? He had a long cab, and and but he loved that truck so much, and I think he spent just as much money fixing it up as he would have gotten if he just went out and he bought a new truck. But I'm glad he didn't get that new truck because my sister would have bought that truck for him and he would have that brand new truck. And right, he had life good. My brother in law was a house husband. He never even had a job. And I think they were married for at least 15 or 20 years. They were married. He had a good life. He got out of it really, really good too. But it was a mess. It was really hard, and my sister is still in the recovery of that, right? Yeah, when you choose your partners, you choose them well, right? You want to choose for life, and you want to know who you're choosing, right? You got to pay attention. Yeah, if that underwear ends up on the bedroom floor every single day, big pile of dirty laundry sitting in the corner of the bedroom every week on laundry day, and that just really, really bothers you, right? Right? When we first meet somebody, we always show our very best qualities when we first meet each other. But then after a while, we just get comfortable and all our faults will come out, right? And sometimes we see them right off the hop and we just say, oh, they'll get better, or that's just Joe, right? He's been like that forever. And you just accept these terrible traits about somebody that makes our life absolutely miserable. I wasn't meant to come and live on this earth and just live a miserable life. And there's been lots of miserableness in my life. but I put as much good into it as I possibly can. I really do. I'm excited about getting this next video out to you guys. It's going to be, well, I don't know if it's going to be any better or any worse than any of the other ones. They are what they are. They were my holidays, and I take you guys along with me every time I go on this trip in September. So the next video is Erin Provincial Park in Ontario. It was only one day, but I just downloaded all the footage. I just got all the Kodaking almost done, and tomorrow we'll start the editing on it. It won't be an hour and 45 minutes, I don't think, even though I think we did go on a pretty good trail. I was going to put it up as a walk with me, Cindy Jean, but if I did, half the video would be gone. So I think the next one is lots of walking in all my videos. Lots of walking. I like walking in the provincial parks. I like the provincial parks, period. Even if I'm just sitting in my camp chair staring off into space, I do a lot of that when I'm out on the lake. Okay, you guys, let's tie this up a little bit. Earl says he's 69. Oh, I thought he said he was 60 years old. Okay, so he's 69. I use people Earth Street levels so I can compare other people's houses to mine in my subdivision. Oh, that is interesting. So that's like Google Maps then, right? I used to do that when I was urban exploring, Earl. When I was looking for the abandoned farms, I would use Street View, and I would just get on the highway and I would use Street View, and I would just look to my right and the left into the fields, and I would spot my abandoned one-room schoolhouses, my abandoned churches, and my old farmsteads. I would find them that way, and then after my work week on my day off, I'd just jump in my car with my list of places because I know what area I'm going to explore, and I would have them marked, and I know exactly where my abandoned were, right? And I love Google Maps. I really do. It was something that I even use it a lot now. Like I said, on my trips, when I do my trips in September, I use it all the time. Come on in. Oh, it's my nephew. Yep. Nephew with Turkey Day, you guys. So we're going to have to tie it up for tonight, you guys, because I'm going to have my Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Adrian. How's your day been going?
Well, I'm all tired out after playing around there with Charlotte for a few hours.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. You got a good relation. That's my great niece.
She's awesome.
We got another grand niece coming too in a few more months, and it's going to be absolutely incredible, you guys. Yeah, my family knows how to pop out the girls. Adrian's the only boy. He's the man of the household now. Okay, you guys, have a great night. Happy Thanksgiving to all the Canadians. I know the people in the States, they have a different Thanksgiving day. We'll see you next Sunday. I know Andrew will be back then. You guys have a great night.